Hello, people. This works. Wanted to do an update on it. As I was saying in my last video, for your speedometer on this bike, it can be any color wire, but coming off the bike, it is a purple line that's coming off the original harness. And it can go to one of the fades. It seems to be less excited in the middle. So yes, the speed control does work for the speed selector 1, 2, and 3. I'll let y'all hear the motor. This motor sounds really good with this controller. Your low speed. Okay. My ghetto block is rubbing against the wheel. That's low. Medium. High. So it is definitely working. And high brake does work. The high brake I went on and hooked up. And on my last video too, according to the wire diagram, they showed the green wire being power selection. Now, I just browsing around and I happened to find a video. And they showed a little bit better of a wiring diagram instead of the one that I have that says power selection. That video showed it being a 60 or 72 volt selection. Now, that would make sense on the green wires being connected and the controller not working when it's disconnected, because it would be an overvolt status. So the green wire is your power selection. If you're using a 60 volt battery, you'll disconnect it, and then if it's connected, you're using 72 volt. And I fully charged my battery set 88.2 volts like it's supposed to be, and it still worked. So if you're going with the voltage that's that high, you're perfectly fine with this controller. A lot of people are going to be asking about the wiring diagram, and that's, yep, I completely understand that. Let me take it off the stand. I got a new phone mount. Oh, that's facing the wrong way. Well, that's just fantastic. Anyway. Alright, like I said, off of the motor controller. I had to put this connector on. Because it just had a like a 5-pin connector on it, and that didn't match with the motor, so that had to be changed. This is your speed controller. The wiring coming out of that is red and yellow, brown and white, blue and white. Now that's going to be according to your switch. You basically just take an ohm meter, find your ground, and then go back and forth on your switch. And when you find low, you'll know that's low. And then the ground wire will always go together, and your speed selector, how it's going to work is it'll go from ground to here for low, and then center point will be no contact to anything. That'll be speed 2, and then ground to this side will be speed 3, which is max gear, so to speak, max speed. Now, on the top of the controller, I just happened to notice this yesterday. Red blinking light. And one other thing about this controller, it also says its phase angle is 120. Now, whether 120 will work on that stock motor or not, I have no idea. If you want to upgrade to this controller, you'll have to just wing it. There are other hub motors out there that you can replace the stock motor with. Say, for example, if you upgrade to this and it won't work on the other motor, it may or may not. I have no idea, and to be honest with you, I'm not going to put it on just to figure out if it's going to work or not. I'm just happy to get this thing going. So, a little more about the wiring. Now, I was saying on the other video, there is a wire that's got a ring terminal coming out of it. That needs to be hooked up to the switch on the bike. And the high brake joined in with the throttle, which is right here. I'm going to get all this stuff tied up. I'm going to use this controller because, folks, I did get the Votol 150 and they sent me a bad one. They did not test it before they shipped it. So, you know, I spent 2 weeks working with them back and forth. It took them 24 hours to respond back, and they ignored the fact that I requested a refund 3 times. After trying this, trying that, try this again, try this file, and they completely ignored. When I got fed up and requested a refund, they just ignored me and said, here, try this. So I filed a dispute with PayPal to try and get my money back, and I probably won't. That controller, I'm not really sure what to do with it. I tried to use my old one to see if maybe I can get the old one to straightened out, but no, it keeps tripping to overcurrent no matter what. Anything over 900 RPM, it blows. It just hits a check mark on the display for overcurrent, shuts the controller down, and the wheel won't spin anymore. I've got to turn the key off and back on to get it to reset. So I've already tossed that one in the garbage. And the other controller, well, I don't know where it is, and quite honestly, oh, there it is, right there. Junk. Whenever I hit the throttle, I turn the throttle on, Regeneration automatically triggers. No matter what setting I set, Regeneration with the throttle automatically triggers. I let off the throttle while the wheel's still spinning, and the motor starts speeding up. There is some kind of internal short on that thing. There's no getting over it. That thing will get somebody killed with it like that. In order for it to not do that, I would have to disconnect the high brake, which means the throttle will be active when you use the brake, but Regeneration is on the whole time the throttle's twisted. Yeah, so that's, no, as soon as I figure out what's going on with getting my money back, and I may be out of luck completely. But it's going in the garbage. I'll probably keep the wiring harness for the connectors for future use, and may or may not upgrade to another 150 at another time. If I don't get my money back, I won't be doing it this year. I've got other stuff to work on, mainly my home. The new part I put up last fall, I've got to do another paint job on, and I'm planning on taking that vinyl siding off and putting up the smart siding. So, anyway, that's an update on the the new Votol that come in. It's junk. Not using it, and I'm glad I spent the money on this because it's working out just fine. This motor sounds really nice. I put 16 miles on it, and it did beautiful. It'll do about 50, 52 miles an Not quite as fast as I wanted it to get, but that's okay. And the throttle is way sensitive, even with these two connected. That's the two white wires. You connect these together, it activates soft start. The only way the soft start actually works is if you fast feed the throttle. If you barely do it, it will snap your neck. You gotta hold on, because it just launches. Don't know about doing a wheelie. I'm not a wheelie person. Never have been. But yeah, it straight just takes off. And I really don't like that. But what can you do? I gotta get used to it. Okay. Now, remember, coming off the wiring for the bike. That is for your speedometer. Yellow and green is your high brake. That's your positive for the throttle. That's your sense wire, and that's your ground. Now, I went on and got this hooked up. It's just a single wire I've adapted in with one of these connectors. And that actually connects to the purple wire off the controller. Yes, there's a red blinking light on top of the controller while the ignition is on. I just noticed, like I said, I just noticed that yesterday. I don't know if it's supposed to blink or what, because there's no paperwork with this whatsoever. And of course the red and white, it's going to vary between controllers, I'd say, but it's going to have a big ring terminal on it, and it needs to go to the ignition positive. And that's going to be that yellow wire right there to connect to this. I added that plug on there. Your hall sensor, and that's really about all you need to know. All the other wires are just blanks. I don't want reverse. I'm not using the alarm, and that's it. So speed select, high brake, and the throttle, along with the hall sensor for the motor, and of course the speedometer. But like I was saying, the stock motor, this controller may or may not work. It's not that expensive of a controller. If you wanted to try it, it would be a good 80 amp option for you. But do not try to pull 80 amp off that stock battery. You will have to upgrade the batteries. You might be able to get away with it on speed 1, because it's not that fast. And a little more about that bike. Let me set this back on the stand. Alright, a little more about that stock battery. If you haven't took your bike apart, you're not going to realize that there's a fuse at the batteries that's only 20 amp. No, maybe 40. I forgot, it's been a while. But if you pull over that on those batteries and it's constant, then that fuse will blow. And most likely, if you're in high speed and you take off at a straight launch, it's going to jerk 80 amp clean out of it, and blow the fuse probably immediately or very shortly afterwards. So keep in mind, you got a fuse at the batteries along with the breaker. And I actually got rid of the stock breaker on this bike. I put an A&L fuse block in it because the 100 amp made in China. It was falling apart. I've got 4-gauge wire going into it, and it fitted. But that thing was falling apart at the seams. So I tossed it out the window and put an A&L fuse in. Been fine. No big deal. I forgot what rating I did, but I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 160 amp, because that's what the batteries that I put in here are rated, 80 amp a piece. Two 80 amp rated batteries with, BMS boards, 80 amp rated. That's 10 amp cells, 8P. So yeah, that's 80 amp. And anyway, I put a 160 amp fuse, I'm pretty sure, A&L. Those stock lead acid batteries, they're only going to handle about 50 amp at best, but not constant. They will heat up, and they will discharge quick, and your voltage sag will be incredibly high. Upgrading the wiring is highly recommended. And instead of using that 10-AUG wire, no, not for this. If you're going to upgrade to an 80 amp controller and do an 80 amp battery, at least run an 8-gauge line. And if your breaker's holding together, go ahead and keep it. It's rated 100 amp, no problem. But if it's falling apart, you might want to replace it with an A&L fuse. Okay, since I went over the wiring on this, and did a slight update, but like I was saying, the Votol they sent me, apparently they didn't test it before they shipped it, and I got junked. And yes, that was through AliExpress. AliExpress website will not let me do a claim. I get to the last page to hit submit, and it's grayed out. Won't let me do nothing. So I went to a PayPal website and filed a claim straight through PayPal. So they're saying 2 weeks. And most likely, I won't get my money back because it's an electronic item and they're going to push it off on me. I did it. I caused the problem. No, I didn't cause the problem. I got it wired correctly. I had the same type of controller to start with. It should have worked. But I guess we'll see. And I just got the feeling they're going to screw me over. Anyway, that's my experience with AliExpress and the Seiyasi So Cool company, whatever it's called. I have no idea how to pronounce that. It looks like Seiyasiko or something like that. Steer clear, because if something goes wrong, you're going to have a problem immediately. Because it takes them once every 24 hours to respond back. They'll try to resolve the issue, but when an issue is not getting resolved over a 2-week stretch, they keep having you try something different. And I got tired of it. After about 6-7 hours of try this, try that, I'm fed up. Ain't no point. And especially what it's doing with the regeneration activating on throttle. That's not right. Definitely not right. And then when you speed the motor, get the motor spinning, let off the throttle and hit the brake, and it speeds the motor up, yeah, that's a problem too. That's just a dead short somewhere. I'll catch you later, people. That's the latest on this controller. I'm definitely going to keep it on. I'm putting the tank back over top of this and zip tying all my wires up. I may even put the side covers on this thing and just wrap it up. And call it a day maybe. But then again, I may just leave the side covers off and decide on what to do about a controller sometime or another. I was hoping to have this thing done this year and just have it complete. Side covers on, the 150 still on it and working properly, but not the case. So it's 2 years now, and it's still not complete for what I wanted, but it is working. It'll do about 50 miles an hour, 50 to 52, somewhere around there. Have a good day, people. Until next time.